oil producers will reportedly not cut oil output when the cartel meets on Thursday in Vienna. According to Reuters, Gulf OPEC delegates say consensus has been reached to not significantly reduce production and increasing speculation against a cut. The Wall Street Journal reports that the Saudi Arabian oil minister Ali Al-Naimi says he is confident OPEC will have a unified position. Saudi Arabia has opposed a cut. Benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude for January delivery falling 2.5% today to $73.88 a barrel, the lowest in over 4 years, and Brent crude dipping 2%. Goldman Sachs and HSBC are to be sued in New York for allegedly fixing the price of platinum and palladium. Metal dealing units from BASF and Standard Bank are also being sued in what is the first lawsuit of its kind in the U.S. The four companies are accused of rigging prices for 8 years by illegally sharing customer data and then using that information to manipulate the market. And gold slipping slightly on Wednesday with just 4 days to go until the Swiss vote on whether or not to, quote, save their Swiss gold. On November 30th, voters in Switzerland will decide whether the Swiss National Bank should boost its gold holdings to 20%, up from current levels of 7%, and should refrain from selling any more gold. The intention behind the referendum is to boost the country's security and independence in times of uncertainty. All right, joining us now, a longtime gold bull for his outlook on commodities, currencies, and more. We're joined from Singapore by legendary investor and CEO of Roger Holdings, Jim Rogers. Jim, great to have you back on the show. Thanks for joining us.
I'm delighted to see you, Michelle, but I haven't bought gold for 4 years, so I do own it, but I'm not buying it.
Well, we're going to talk about your position on gold in a little bit, but first of all, we're going to focus on oil. And Jim, reports that OPEC will not cut output at its meeting tomorrow. What do you expect from the meeting, and why do you think Saudi Arabia is standing firm and refusing to cut outputs?
Well, Saudi Arabia has been dumping oil because America has worked with them to put pressure on Russia and Iran, both of whom America's got situations with at the moment, as you well know. And Saudi Arabia is delighted to do it because it puts some of the shale drillers out of business. If I were Saudi Arabia, I would do it too. In the end, it's going to be a great buying opportunity for oil, but it's artificial what's happening at the moment.
So you're buying this view that Saudi Arabia is trying to disincentivize shale and gas producers by keeping the price low. What is your outlook for oil over the next 3 months?
Well, I wish I were smart enough, Michelle, to figure that out. I don't know what Saudi Arabia is doing with the State Department because, as I say, the State Department is negotiating with Iran right now, so they need help from low oil prices. America's trying to deal with Russia. That low oil prices helps America put pressure on Russia. I have no idea what's going to happen with all this. But I do know that Saudi Arabia wants to damage the fracking in the U.S., and this is helping in that sense. But the next 3 months, I don't have a clue. You should watch your program.
Well, Jim, what you do seem to have a clue about is Russia, which has been severely hurt by the drop in oil prices. In fact, Russia says it will cost its economy $100 billion this year. But you say, according to Bloomberg, that you would invest in Russia right now. The ruble is near record lows. Inflation is above target. Why are you so bullish on Russia?
I'm absolutely investing in Russia at the moment. Michelle, you're supposed to buy low and sell high. I know your parents taught you that, and you just pointed out, Russia's suffering right now. By the way, the ruble has stopped going down. The ruble has actually started rallying. The Russian stock market is down. They have huge reserves. The market is hated. You're supposed to buy when there's figurative blood in the streets.
Buy low, sell high, but what do you think is going to push Russia higher, and which sectors in particular?
Well, Russia has enormous reserves. They have huge foreign currency reserves. They have very little debt. They have a convertible currency. They've got natural resources, including oil, which you point out. So it's a very cheap stock market. And I like to buy cheap stock markets where people are fleeing and going the other way. There's a company called Agro, which is a huge fertilizer company, which is not hurt by this at all. I bought shares of the Moscow Stock Exchange. I bought the index, the ETFs. There are various ways to play Russia.
And Jim, you're not concerned about the U.S. and EU sanctions? In fact, do you think they'll backfire?
I know they're going to they're already starting to backfire, and what's happening is they're pushing the Russians and the Asians closer together. Michelle, I hate that because I'm an American citizen. I hate to see us hurting ourselves. Many European countries are already trying to figure out, are already not trying, they are figuring out ways to get around the sanctions. This is hurting us more than it's hurting the Russians because plenty of Asians love to do business with Russia, especially when the Russians don't have much choice.
So, Jim, what is the impact of China and Russia becoming closer allies as a result of these sanctions?
Well, it's changing the world economy, the world geography in a big way. The Russians and the Chinese are now, and the Brazilians are trying to figure out ways to move away from the U.S. dollar. I mean, this is having massive long-term effects because if they do now move away from the U.S. dollar and set up a new World Bank and a new currency, America's losing an enormous amount of its prestige and power. I don't like this at all, Michelle, since I'm an American, but unfortunately in Washington, they think they're doing the right thing.
Well, Jim, one other thing I know that you don't like and you've been very outspoken about has been the Fed's money printing policy, as you call it. QE3 has now wrapped up, and to coincide with that wrapping up, gold is down 2.6 for the month. Where do you stand on things at the moment? Despite all of this, the GDP came in at 3.9%. We've had the strongest back-to-back quarters in a decade. Do you still think QE was a mistake and that the Fed has debased the dollar? And where are you on gold?
Michelle, I know it's a mistake debasing the currency and printing a lot of money. That's never worked in the long term or even the medium term in history. Of course, the people getting the money are having a wonderful time, and their friends are having a wonderful time. But when this unwinds, Michelle, we're all going to pay a horrible price for it. Not just Americans, but the world is going to pay for it. Where do I stand on gold? I'm not buying gold. I own gold. I haven't sold any gold. I expect an opportunity to buy gold again in the next year or two. And if I'm right, I plan to buy a lot more gold. The bull market in gold is not over. By the end of the decade, who knows how high it will be.
Jim, very quickly, what level are you buying gold at?
I don't know. I have to watch I don't know. I have to watch CCTV to find out what happens in the world. If there's war, I'll buy it higher.
All right, well, we're watching CCTV, and thank you for joining us on CCTV, Jim Rogers, CEO of Roger Holdings. All right.